Welcome to Science Go, your gateway to the cutting edge of innovation and the world of science and health. I'm your host, and each week we explore the latest trends, breakthroughs, and the people shaping the future of science, health, and technology.
Welcome back, everyone. Today's deep dive might have some of you saying, ew, but stick with us on this one. We're talking about eating insects.
Yeah, you know those crawly things? Crickets, mealworms, grasshoppers, but as food?
You know what, though? It's already a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, people eating this stuff already.
Big time. Over 2 billion people across the globe incorporate insects into their diets.
Okay, so 2 billion. That's a lot of people.
It is.
So they can't all be wrong, right? We're not just talking about like a dare or something. These insects are actually being called the protein of the future.
Yeah, protein source of the future, they're saying, and for good reason.
So let's dig into that. What makes them so special?
Well, for starters, they're nutritional powerhouses. Take mealworms, for instance.
Okay.
They've got a whopping 60 grams of protein per 100 grams. That's like 3 times the amount you'd find in beef.
3 times. So you're saying I could get the same protein punch from a cricket burger as I would from a big ol' steak.
You got it. Think about it. That's a potential game changer for how we get our protein.
That is pretty wild when you put it like that. But it's got to be more than just protein, right? What else is packed in these little guys?
Oh, you better believe it. They're full of good stuff. Omega-3 fatty acids, which are great for your heart and brain, B vitamins for energy, and essential minerals like iron and zinc, which, like, your body needs to function. It's like they're little multivitamins you can eat.
Okay, you're really selling me on this whole insect thing. I'll admit I was a bit skeptical at first. I mean, I did try a cricket flour brownie once. Let's just say the texture was interesting.
Yeah, I get it. It's definitely a mental hurdle for a lot of us. But what if I told you that compared to traditional livestock farming, raising insects has a way smaller impact on the environment? Way smaller.
Now, that's something I've been hearing a lot about, insect protein being a more sustainable choice. Can you break that down for us? Like, what makes it better for the planet?
Think about it this way. Raising cows, pigs, or chickens requires massive amounts of land, water, and feed.
Right, makes sense.
And all that livestock produces a ton of methane, which is like a super powerful greenhouse gas. Insect farming, it uses a fraction of those resources.
So less water, less land, less feed.
Ugh.
That's a win for the environment on like every level.
Exactly. And get this, about 80% of an insect is actually edible. Compare that to a cow, where you're only eating about 40%, way more bang for your buck, so to speak.
80%? Seriously?
Yeah.
That's incredible. I had no idea it was that high. So not only are insects more efficient to raise, but there's practically zero waste. This is starting to sound like a win-win for us and the planet.
It definitely has potential, but, there are some things to consider. We can't ignore those.
Right, you can't just ignore the ick factor. Plus, there are legitimate concerns about safety, too. Like, we can't just tell everyone to go catch grasshoppers in their backyard, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Just like any other food, safety and hygiene are super important with insects. It's crucial to get your insects from reputable sources, farms that specifically breed them for consumption.
Okay, so kind of like how you'd want your chicken from a farm, not, a pigeon from the park.
Exactly. These farms use controlled, hygienic environments and high-quality feed to make sure the insects are safe to eat. There are actually some seriously impressive insect farms over in Europe, the Netherlands, and Belgium. They're really leading the way.
So it's all about knowing where your bugs are coming from, basically.
Exactly. And, those controlled environments they use, that helps with another concern people often bring up.
Okay, what's that?
Allergies.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Some people are allergic to shellfish, some people peanuts.
It's the same with insects. Some people might be allergic to certain types. More research needs to be done for sure. We need to understand this better and figure out how to manage these potential allergens. Again, that's why those reputable farms are so important. They can control what those insects are eating, which can really minimize the allergy risks.
So don't just go munching on random ants you find in your backyard.
Don't do that.
It's noted. But, okay, so allergies, got it. What about, well, I guess what everyone's wondering is like, how clean is it to eat a bug?
You're talking about pathogens.
Yeah, like, are we going to get sick?
It's a fair question. And listen, proper cooking kills off most pathogens, just like with any other meat you'd cook. But on top of that, there's a big push for stricter regulations and standards for insect farming. Got to make sure things are clean and safe from the minute they're hatched to when they end up on your plate.
Okay, so really not that different from any other food industry then. I mean, you want high standards for your beef, chicken, and veggies, so why not crickets too?
Exactly. And that's where we're headed, I think. Stricter standards, better transparency. It's an industry with so much potential, but it has to be done right.
Well said. It's interesting, though, because when you really think about it, what we consider food really depends on where you grew up.
100%. Culture plays a huge role. Like,
Yes.
what might seem totally normal to eat in one part of the world might seem super strange in another.
For sure. I mean, I've seen those chocolate-covered scorpions sold at those tourist shops. Is that even a real thing people eat or just a gimmick?
Oh, no, they're real. People eat them.
Huh. See, that would never even cross my mind to try.
It's all about what you're exposed to. For many cultures, insects have been a regular part of diets for centuries, Totally normal. Ants, crickets, grasshoppers, they're all good sources of protein and nutrients.
So maybe this aversion we have in some cultures, it's more of a mental thing than anything else.
It's a lot about perception, for sure. Plus, we already eat insects indirectly all the time.
Wait, really? How so?
Think about cochineal extract. It's a common red food coloring.
Okay.
It's made from crushed beetles.
Get out, crushed beetles. I've been eating crushed beetles my whole life. Okay, maybe this whole insect thing isn't so out there after all.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I'm glad you brought up that whole eating insects indirectly thing, because you have a question about that. So you're saying, like, we're already eating bugs, we just don't know it.
Pretty much. It's not like it's a completely foreign concept. But what's interesting?
What's that?
A lot of cultures have been eating insects for ages. Like, it's totally normal for them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And they've got tons of recipes and traditions around it. We talked about that earlier.
Right, and we can learn a lot from them. I mean, take ants, for example.
Ants?
Yeah. Some cultures prize certain types of ants because they have this, like, citrusy, lemony flavor.
Really? You're telling me ants can taste like lemons? That's wild.
Yeah, imagine using them in a dish.
Okay, now that's next level stuff right there.
Love it.
Ants. So for our listeners out there who are like intrigued but maybe a little grossed out still, what advice would you give them? Like, what's a good baby step into this whole edible insect thing?
I'd say start small, ease your way in.
Okay.
Try like a protein bar made with cricket flour, or maybe some pasta that's got insect protein in it.
So basically sneaking it in there.
Kind of. It's a good way to get your feet wet without, like, committing to a whole plate of crickets,
Makes sense. Start slow. Well, this whole conversation has been really eye-opening, I gotta say. I never thought I'd be saying this, but I kind of want to try some of these insect dishes now.
Right.
It really makes you think about food in a whole new way.
It really does. And you know what's cool?
Like that.
This isn't just about, like, weird food trends. It's about the bigger picture, too.
What do you mean?
Our food choices, they have a huge impact on the planet.
Oh, for sure. Like that whole thing we talked about with traditional livestock farming versus insect farming.
Exactly.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I have to ask, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
Be open-minded. That's it. Don't be afraid to try new things.
I love that.
The future of food is going to look different than it does today, right?
Probably.
And insects, they might just be a bigger part of that future.
It's been a wild ride exploring the world of edible insects, that's for sure. Thank you to our amazing expert for joining us, and thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to another episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those palates adventurous.